Tonight, we are slipping into the gilded, corseted, faintly scented world of the most beautiful woman in 19th century Europe, Empress Elisabeth of Austria. Known to friends, biographers, and terrified handmaidens as Sisi. Forget the sparkling sound of music version they sold you on postcards. The real Sisi ran a daily beauty routine. So extreme. Who T in A E N N I E T had E O A E O T N it pass E expect it. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to spend 3 hours every morning getting your hair done before you were even allowed breakfast? Ever tried to stay thin by weighing yourself before dawn and treating a bowl of broth as a full meal? Could you fall asleep with raw meat strapped to your face, held in place by a leather mask, and call it self-care? Would you survive a single day as the empire's official prettiest person, hunted by portrait painters, corseted to the brink of fainting, and forbidden from ever looking ordinary? Congratulations! You have just woken up in 1867 in a canopied bed in the Hofburg Palace. Your ankle-length hair fanned out around you like a fallen curtain, and a hairdresser already sharpening her comb in the next room. Good luck! You open your eyes to silk sunlight and the low murmur of servants who have already been awake for hours, preparing for the enormous project that is your face. There is no snooze button. You are the Empress of Austria, and your entire day, every single day, is organized around one exhausting mission: staying beautiful, not happy, not rested, not comfortable. Beautiful. This is the Hofburg, the sprawling imperial palace in the heart of Vienna. A building so vast it functions less like a home and more like a small, heavily gilded city. Your apartments alone could swallow an entire ordinary family's existence. It is the year 1867, and you are 29 years old, which in your world is a genuinely alarming age to be, because you have built your whole identity on youth and beauty. And youth is starting to check its pocket watch, and you married the Emperor Franz Joseph at 16, a shy Bavarian girl plucked out of the countryside and dropped into the most rigid, suffocating court in Europe. And you have spent every year since discovering that being adored is remarkably similar to being imprisoned. The crowds love you, the court watches you, and you have responded to all this attention by turning your appearance into a fortress. Here is the thing about being the beautiful one. It sounds like a compliment. It is actually a full-time occupation with brutal hours and no possibility of resignation. Imagine that routine is not optional, not aspirational, but mandatory, enforced by an entire empire's expectations and repeated with grim devotion from now until the day you die. You do not get ready for the day. You are assembled for it. Nothing about you is allowed to look accidental. Not a strand, not a seam, not an ounce. In an age before filters, before retouching, before you could simply delete an unflattering angle, you have appointed yourself the human editor of your own image, working entirely by hand, entirely in advance, for hours every morning, and the first item on that schedule, the crown jewel of the entire operation, is currently spread across your pillow like a spilled river of chestnut silk. It always starts with the hair, not an actual crown. Your hair, it falls all the way to your ankles, a thick chestnut river, so long you could practically trip over it. And it is the single most famous feature of the most famous woman on the continent. People travel to catch a glimpse of it. Painters obsess over it. And you, its owner, are effectively its full-time employee. Because hair this magnificent does not just happen. It is farmed, guarded, and maintained like a national monument. When you stand and let it down, your hair pools on the floor around your feet. You can wrap yourself in it. It weighs enough that carrying it around all day is a physical workout in its own right. Imagine your head is permanently draped in a thick winter scarf that you are never, ever allowed to take off, that occasionally people paint portraits of, and that has its own dedicated employee. Here is the number that should make your scalp ache in sympathy. 3 hours every morning. Roughly 3 hours of your life are surrendered to the styling, the braiding, the coiling, and the pinning of your hair before you are considered presentable to a single human being. That is not a special occasion. That is not a coronation. That is Tuesday. 3 hours is a transatlantic flight. 3 hours is an entire feature film with time left over for the credits and a nap. And you are spending it daily in a chair, having your hair sorted strand by strand, while the world spins on without you. Of course, 3 hours of daily labor requires a laborer. Her name was Fanny. Every empire has a power behind the throne, and in your case, she is holding a comb. Fanny is a former theatrical hairdresser you poached, specifically because she could handle the monstrous task nobody else could. Fanny is not really a servant. Fanny is a specialist, an artist, and when it comes to your hair, something dangerously close to your boss. She travels with you everywhere. Her hands are insured, metaphorically speaking, by your sheer dependence on them. And if Fanny is unavailable, your entire day stops. But even a genius like Fanny cannot make the hair immortal. Hair falls, it is a fact of biology, cruel and universal, and it applies even to empresses. And your response to this ordinary unavoidable phenomenon is where your obsession stops being merely intense and tips gently into the theatrical. Because in your world, a fallen hair does not simply vanish, it is counted. Every time your hair is brushed, the strands that come loose must be collected, gathered onto a silver tray, and presented to you for inspection, like a tiny grim harvest report on the state of your most prized possession. Losing hair is a personal betrayal. Picture the mornings when the brush has been unkind, when more strands than usual have come loose, and Fanny stands there knowing full well that presenting the true harvest will darken your mood for the entire day. What does a clever, terrified professional do? She adapts. It became known that hairdressers in your service would quietly conceal some of the fallen strands, tucking them out of sight, presenting you with a reassuringly modest little pile, all to spare themselves the storm. Somewhere in the folds of a sleeve or the corner of an apron, the evidence of an ordinary human scalp was being smuggled away for the sake of imperial peace. There is something almost touching buried in the absurdity, because the obsession with the counted hairs is not really about the hairs. It is about control. And it is about fear. You have staked your whole worth on your beauty. And beauty, unlike an empire, cannot be defended with soldiers. It slips away one strand at a time. Quietly, whether you approve or not, you are an empress. You are one of the wealthiest women on earth. And you are quietly, completely, terrified of growing older. Welcome to the morning. The hairdresser is waiting.